Just 4 months ago, last November, my next guest, Louise Galvin, and her boyfriend, Alan Feely, were happily looking forward to spending Christmas together on a skiing trip. Life could not have been better for this young couple, both of whom were enjoying busy careers here in Limerick, Louise as a physiotherapist and Alan as a PE teacher. 2 days later, fate dealt a tragic blow when Alan suffered a brain hemorrhage and died. Today, his family and his girlfriend Louise can take some small solace from the fact that as a result of donating 6 of his organs, in his death, Alan was able to bestow the gift of life to 5 others. As Organ Donor Awareness Week starts tomorrow, Louise and Alan's brother Liam have joined me here in Plassey House today to share his story in the hope that it will encourage others to do what he was prepared to do. So we'll start maybe with you, Liam. If you could describe your brother for me, what sort of a fellow was he?
I suppose, first of all, I was lucky enough to have Alan as a brother and a best friend. I suppose as a brother, being the younger brother, I was constantly looking up to Alan. He was a role model to me since I could open my eyes, constantly trying to be as good a person as him, and still am trying to be as good a person as he was. He was a wonderful, wonderful person. I mean, for his friends, Alan left an indelible mark on anyone who was lucky enough to meet him. He was courageous, strong, kind, extremely generous, inspiring, still is inspiring.
Yeah. And as a sportsman, I mean, he was a top man.
He was the fittest man I know. Anyone that knows him would associate Alan with physical fitness and sport and just being active and getting people up and going.
And he captained Clare Morris.
Yeah, myself, Alan and Donal were all lucky enough to play together, and Alan captained us as well. So, and he was also, he played water polo for Ireland, won national medals, swimming, would have played Mayo football underage, soccer for Mayo, just started a budding rugby career, was earmarked as a future AIL player, and he only started at 28. Just absolutely amazing.
Incredible man.
Yeah.
And sport, therefore, it was everything that he lived and breathed, so it became what he wanted to do with his life professionally as well.
Yeah, exactly. Alan became a PE teacher. He was teaching in Doon, County Limerick. I suppose as well as inspiring players on the pitch, he also inspired players off the pitch, coaching the girls in Doon to Munster titles and getting people involved in sport, and constantly encouraging people to, whether competitively or not competitively, take up physical activity.
Now, Louise, how did you meet Alan?
We're both UL alumni, so we would have been in UL between 2004 and 2008. So I would have met him originally then, and then probably not for a few years after we graduated, and then we played tag rugby together for the previous 3 or 4 seasons.
So there's a constant theme running through here, which is sport. Both of you love sport.
Absolutely, yeah.
What can you tell me about that awful day when he had this terrible thing that could not have been predicted and possibly could not have been avoided? You were with him.
Yeah, well, I suppose if I start from the beginning, it was a normal day. We just live about a mile out the road there. Both came home in the evening. I was living with Alan and a couple of our friends in Limerick. Louise was there. We all had dinner. Usual thing in the evening, Alan was driving us all to go to the gym, even though he had lined out for Claremorris a few hours earlier the day before, but he was mad to go, so we said yeah, we'd go. And of course, again, usual gym session, we were trying to keep up with him. Everything going great as always, and then I suppose it was actually the very last few minutes of our session, Alan collapsed in front of me, and first of all, I suppose I thought he might have fainted, because that can happen when people exercise, but pretty quick we realised something more serious had happened. So I suppose the paramedics were called, and from there we ended up in the hospital, and the story goes on from there.
How quickly did you know that this was catastrophic in the hospital?
Yeah, well, I suppose talking to the paramedics on the way in the ambulance, I asked them to be brutally honest with me, and they said, look, it's not good, it's very serious. We think it's his brain. It could be his heart, but we think it's his brain. So I suppose
they were able to check his vital signs with whatever equipment they had.
Yeah, exactly. And he was unresponsive, and his ECG was going through the roof, and all sorts of things they do. So they were able to tell me pretty quickly, and I suppose Louise and her friends had arrived on scene at the time as well. So it was within an hour or two at the hospital, we had a fair idea of what had happened and kind of trying to come to terms.
This is an unbelievable situation from, everybody having a great life, enjoying life, looking forward to things, planning things, including your holiday that was looming. And then this. I mean, can you remember anything of your reaction, or did you go into autopilot, Louise?
I suppose I just tried to keep calm initially, because I knew there's no point, panicking. But as Liam's already explained, it was fairly clear once we arrived at the hospital, and I work in the same hospital and would have met some of the members of staff that I would have known, that things were very serious. So one of the things we had to deal with was that Alan's parents were away. One of his brothers was out of the country as well, so trying to get them back. And you're just, although you're very aware and prepared for the worst, I suppose you always have that slim chance of hope until, they weaned off sedation in the morning and they tried to assess if there was any brain function. But unfortunately, tests were fairly conclusive that Alan wasn't going to recover.
Now, had the whole question of organ donation come up, did it pass you by in your work from time to time?
Yes, it did, yeah. I deal with patients, cystic fibrosis patients, so they'd often require lung transplants. So possibly, ironically, last year I would have discussed with Alan a patient that had recently received a lung transplant. And
so when you went back to Alan to home and you started talking about your day,
absolutely,
and one of the patients had been transformed by getting a lung transplant.
Yeah, and he could see even just the joy in my face, and he wanted to know more about it because Alan was very inquisitive person, so he wanted to know all about how that would happen, how it changed their lives. Following on from that as well, in the summer, Alan would have had a conversation with his mother, Kathleen, back in Claremorris, relating to a newspaper article. So he's made his wishes clear to both myself and to his mother prior to his collapse that should anything happen, he'd like to be an organ donor.
The actual process itself, I mean, it's a very sensitive thing to be bringing up with people, and the decision had been made, but I know they don't necessarily go counter to the wishes of family. Even if someone has signed off on a donor card, they are respectful of the wishes of family. So what was the process that happened?
Well, what's supposed to happen is, and it did happen in our case, is the parents or the next of kin of, or obviously the wife or whatever it is has to make a decision ultimately. So of course Alan had a donor card and he wanted to be a donor, but that was just to signify
his wishes.
But the conversation has to happen, because in the end it's always going to be the next of kin have to make the decision. So the fact that that Alan had discussed it with my mother, Kathleen, meant that a decision wasn't a decision, it was just a confirmation of Alan's wishes. And I suppose when you're in the depths of despair and, I don't know, your world has gone crazy after my brother, or my parents' case, son dying, getting asked the question, do you want your son's organ donated? It made our choice an awful lot easier that we knew Alan would have been his wishes.
And what organs did he donate?
His lungs, heart, kidney, liver, pancreas. So they went to 5 people.
Which is a fantastic gift to give to those people. Do you know anything at all about the recipients?
Alan's parents would have received a letter signifying the gender and the age of the recipients, but obviously it's kept anonymous. Yeah.
Now, the process, they have to, in a situation like that, keep the patient alive. They had to keep Alan alive until they can harvest the organs. Did you get to say goodbye to Alan, or what happens in a situation like that?
Yeah, I suppose because we were waiting for Alan's brother Hugh and his parents, Woody and Kathleen, to come back into the country. It actually probably allowed the beginning of the grieving process really in the hospital. So a lot of close friends. Alan was in Limerick for the last 9 years, so obviously had a lot of friends. They were able to come in and say their goodbyes. And I mean, it's a very difficult situation. Obviously, it's incomprehensible, but
the realization for all of the pals of your own age how fragile life can be.
Absolutely. I mean, it was just really young people coming in and out, and obviously aunts and uncles and cousins, and it was frightening. And even speaking to ICU staff from the hospital afterwards, they were just saying there wasn't a dry eye in the place when you just see really, young, generally fit and healthy people having to go through such a tragedy.
Christmas then loomed. I don't know how you got through Christmas at all.
Yeah, Christmas wasn't the easiest time now, to be honest. But of course, the support of family and friends has been absolutely amazing. Neighbours and stuff from my parents and home has been absolutely incredible. The fact that we've kind of, once this happened, after a few weeks, the dust settled, we kind of came up with our Allen Sports Extravaganza and AlanFeely.com. It kind of gave us a new focus, and that was kind of when it started to come to life, because it just gave us a distraction, but a good, positive distraction. And we felt...
You're both wearing T-shirts saying Allen Sports Extravaganza. When is that happening, and what's going to happen at it?
Well, Allen Sports Extravaganza is happening here in UL in the fantastic facilities over in the North Campus on the 2nd of August 2014. And the day is going to be a sports day, so based around a tag rugby tournament. But it's a sports day what we want to do is encourage people of all physical fitness abilities to get to participate in sport and get involved. And that night, again, we're having a ball all to commemorate Allen as well.
All right, now you can get all the details on that if you log on to alanfeely.com. That'll give all the details of that. But also, you were involved in making a presentation yesterday with the launch of the Organ Donor Awareness Week, which is happening. How did that go for you?
Yeah, up in the Mansion House, the Irish Kidney Association launched Organ Donor Week. I suppose it was very nice to hear the good stories from transplant patients who have received organs and how their life has been completely turned around since, people with kids and wives and families have a new lease of life. I suppose it just reconfirmed the importance of organ donation for us, and reconfirmed the fact that you need to have the conversation with someone, and if you do wish to be an organ donor.
And of course, Alan's story at the time, even, it led to a huge increase, I believe, a surge in organ donor applications, because people were so touched by what had happened to Alan.
The IK reported there was an 8 to 10-fold increase in requests for donor cards to their free text service in the week following Alan's death, and on average 1 out of 6 were from Limerick or Mayo, where he was living, where he's from. Yeah. So when we heard that also, I suppose, helped us go down the route of trying to continue to promote organ donor awareness as well as physical activity and remember Alan.
Going back to the beginning of this tragedy, what was ever discovered about the cause of his sudden death?
Alan, it's very difficult to say, but he probably had an aneurysm that could have been there since birth, that it was unknown to him.
Nothing to do with his fabulous sporting life, that he was so active and so, intense in everything he did, had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
No, not at all. If anything, I suppose it made it a bit harder to understand. It was such a contradiction to life that someone so fit and healthy could be so struck down instantaneously.
So just one of those things.
One of those things, yeah.
It's fragile, and maybe he was better off never knowing, because he was a real adrenaline junkie and enjoyed things such as scuba diving, skydiving, skiing, bungee jumping. He'd done it all, so he really lived life to the max. And we've come up with a tagline for the event: live life, give life. So live life to the full, whatever your interests should be, encourage you to do that as much as possible, and then should your time come, give life to those who are most deserving.
And if there is any solace at all to be found in the manner of his going, he knew nothing about it. He was doing what he loved doing in the gym,
exactly, yeah.
And then he was no more.
Yeah, I suppose Alan died doing what he loved doing, even playing the football match the day before. And it just kind of reinforced the whole sporting side of things for us, that he was so happy, and so even in mental health he was so strong because of sport. And that's another reason why it's encouraged us to come up with this.
All right, I'll just reiterate again where people can find out about the great extravaganza which is happening here, alanfeely.com. But also you can free text donor to 550, that's 50050, for an organ donor card, or you can log on to www.ika.ie. And Louise Galvin and Alan Feely, thank you very much for joining us.
Liam, I should have said. Liam, thank you.
The Pat Kenny Show with Energia. Home energy